Totally
Well,
normal.
Praise, welcome to the podcast. How's the day been for you? You over in the UK?
Yes, I'm in the UK, so it's about like 2 p.m. over here, and I came back from festival yesterday, so I'm still like waking up.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
wow. What
normally I would
festival
be-
was it?
It's called David's Tent, so it's literally like 72 hours of non-stop worship.
Wow.
So yeah, that was really amazing. But I think since coming home, like I fully crashed, and yeah, just haven't been my usual productive self just yet. But yeah, I've been up and doing some emails and whatnot. So but
Oh,
yeah, it's been good
man.
so far. It's been a good day.
Awesome. So I'm curious to find out a bit about the festival, David's Tent. Is that, what does that look like? So 72 hours of worship and praise.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that non-stop?
Yeah, it pretty much is. So they have multiple worship teams, and they transition between each team. Like everyone, I think, gets like an hour set, 1 hour 15, or something along those lines. And yeah, there's just like a rotation that happens, and yeah, they transition to each one, and then after around like 10:30, it moves on to like a smaller stage because most people tend to go to sleep, and then but there are people who like the night watch and like to be up and worship at those times, so they have more like acoustic or smaller band sets, and then it just continues. So
Wow.
yeah, literally does not stop, keeps going.
That's amazing. And is that something you just attended, or were you involved in it?
Yes, I was involved as well. Me and a couple of friends of mine led a set at 2:30 in the morning. So,
Wow.
yeah, that was intense.
That is
was so
crazy. Wow.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we pretty much pulled, well, it wasn't quite an all-nighter, but it was like we didn't go to sleep until the time of our set. So we were very tired, but it was just really sweet. And I think, especially because it was like the first night, everybody was just really in a place wanting to worship, and just, yeah, they were there because they wanted to be. So it was great. Really
Yeah.
sweet time.
That sounds like such an awesome experience, and something to be a part of as well. I can't think of anything that's similar over here in Australia, or at least in WA or Perth, where I'm at.
Okay. I have friends in Brisbane who've started something recently called Tehillah.
Okay.
And very close. I think they do like maybe 48 hours or just under 70 or something of non-stop worship. So very similar. But yeah, that's very new. It may have started like last year or the year before.
Right.
So that's some of the PNW guys who started that one. So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to check it out when I'm over there, or get them to start something over here. That'd be great.
Yeah. Let it expand. It'll be great.
Yeah. So, just for our guests who are listening, you're obviously involved in the creative space. You produce music. You an artist, a songwriter. Maybe just to humanize you a bit, put a bit of flesh to the voice. You can share two things. One is something that people may find surprising about yourself. And then the second thing would be what exactly do you do, and what does your week to week look like?
Okay, something surprising about myself. Not many people know, well, maybe some do, but I have a degree in chemistry.
Wow.
So I'm a chemist by trade, and then left my job just last year to focus more towards the music side. I had no idea what that journey would look like at the point of leaving my job, but it just felt like it was the right time. So
wow.
Now I'm working for Wings Music Group, so perfect segue actually into the second part. But yeah, I work for Wings Music Group in the A&R department, and I'm also making music. So most of my days are focused on music and helping other people with their music journey. And alongside of that, more recently, a couple of friends of mine and myself organize events called Night of Parables.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, so that is a kind of like it's not purely acoustic, but more of a stripped back vibe and a seated gig, so people can really take in the stories from the artists, and it's just an opportunity for people to find new music and to hear about Jesus through art. So that's mostly what I spend my time doing.
That's awesome. So Night of Parables, did you start that? Was that your idea?
It actually wasn't. So Sarah Jewers and I had a conversation just randomly. Like we've already been like pretty good friends. We've connected over the past few years, and around the time I think I was making my album, we just had like a FaceTime. We were just catching up, and she was just saying how she really wanted to come to the UK and do a show. And I thought, yeah, that'll be really amazing. And she said, we should do it together. So I thought, great, I'll figure out how we can put that together. And I thought, actually, why not kill many birds with one stone and just be like, okay, invite as many friends as we can. So we spoke to Claudia Isaki as well, who's based in Paris. And another friend, Rebecca Young, who lives in London. So we thought, okay, let's make it an event that we can just share our music. Everyone gets an equal time. And the name Night of Parables came through my friend Anna, who was in the group chat when we were just brainstorming how to put the event together. And we were just sharing how we wanted it to be a space to obviously share our music, but to just share stories and just be able to talk about what we've been through and what we've learned, and how songs came together. And so she came up with the name Night of Parables. And since that event that happened in December of last year, there was a lot of interest from people just saying that they want this to be a regular thing. And, there's not a lot of space for that kind of music where it's not exactly congregational, and maybe these type of artists don't really get to feature on the bigger Christian stages, for example, but they still have a story to tell. So we wanted to just amplify that a bit more. And so I just kind of asked the girls if it was okay if I could take the idea and run with it, and they were like, yes, absolutely. So we've been doing it since, and we've had 2 more events since then, so that's been really exciting.
That's awesome. And how have you found that you've kept doing it, so the events have obviously gone well? How have you found people's response to them? Yeah,
I think a lot of people have just wanted a space, want to hear a lot of their favorite artists, but then for a lot of them, they're discovering things for the first time and hearing music they haven't heard before, and it's providing a lot of language to things that maybe they're thinking or feeling or sensing. So it just creates a bit more of a community aspect and just ignites like people's excitement. And I've spoken to people that have come and said, this is really kind of confirmed to me about their own creativity and what God is calling them to do. And maybe people who are involved in like music industry and things like that have come up to me and said, any way we can invest and be a part of this, they want to just support what's happening. So it's been really fun. It's been great seeing even artists as well just been like, I've been dreaming for a space like this. So it's been really, really encouraging.
That's cool. That was going to be my second question to that, is how have the artists found being involved in those events?
Yeah, so a lot of the artists that we've had so far, so basically each lineup we've had 3 to 4 artists per night. And some of them, they've already been friends, but some of them they get together, they don't know each other, but they get to meet and build a friendship. So it's nice actually for people to see like, oh, it's not just me, and there are other people who are doing similar things. And it's just, it creates more of that community aspect that I've always really longed for. And I've always had positive feedback from them that they've enjoyed it. And they've had new people find out about their music as well, which is great. So I think one of the things is just really wanting to invest in them and their walk and their stories. So it's been really great just seeing the impact that it's having on them.
Yeah.
So,
it sounds like I follow you guys on Instagram as well, and I love seeing, exactly what you're saying, just that community aspect side of things, and then also just a space where artists who, like you said, don't have as big of a main stage platform, be able to share their gifts and their stories with others and really add into that community. It seems like, I just love that idea, because there's so many talented people out there and so many people that are wanting to support, but you just bringing the two together, and it's great. That I love how it creates and cultivates a culture of community and just worship and like honor. I think it honors people well as well. So very cool. So I have to ask as well, so going back, you're in chemistry. That's a very different space to where you are now.
Yeah.
What was that journey like for you, and why did you shift?
So chemistry was just one of those subjects at school that I was really interested and intrigued by, and I liked education and I enjoyed learning and studying, and there were lots of subjects that I was interested in, but I didn't really have a direct path. And especially while I was at university, or even previous to that, when I was choosing my subject for university, I wasn't thing. So I was just a consumer at that point, but had almost like let that dream go in terms of making music, because I was just very just very shy and didn't have a lot of confidence in exploring that. And also I really struggled to read music, so I just thought, clearly this isn't for me. So I was just focusing on the whole academic side of things, and chemistry at the time just made the most sense to me. And so I pursued that at university, and I enjoyed it and had a great time. But I think around the time that I was at university, like, God really started to speak to me about music and pursuing that. And I found out about like artists like Rose and Robots, and Sarah Jew is also being one of them, and just a lot of the independent Christian artists that were making music at the time through what was called the Good Christian Music blog. So that's how I found out about a lot of the artists that were just making the kind of music that I enjoyed listening to, and what I wanted to make as well. So I just developed the skill of writing during that time, and but again, didn't really pursue much of it. It was just more of a like in the hidden kind of wilderness season, people like to call it. But it was just the time of just writing and developing and just enjoying that. I wasn't really thinking further ahead or trying to make music, but it was around the time of COVID when I started releasing songs and collaborating with people. And at the time, my chemistry job was funding a lot of the music I was making, so it felt like a perfect setup, and it was great for a time as well. But then it got to a point where it just got really draining balancing the two, because I'd have work from like 9 to 6, and then I'd get home and start recording vocals from like 11 p.m. until like 2 a.m. or something.
Oh my
just
goodness.
to be able to like keep the ball rolling, or you've got a collaboration with someone and they're like, oh, can I have the the vocals by next week, and you just have to make it happen, really. So it got too heavy at one point, so I just felt like, okay, I have to let this one go. And I think at first I didn't want to leave my job because, again, the stability, but also I heard something that I believe it was Antoine Bradford who said, and in an interview, someone asked him, or on Instagram Live, can't remember, someone asked him like how he knew it was the right time to leave his job, and he just said, like, when the music opportunities were coming up on this side, but work was becoming more and more of a hindrance to that, then he knew, like, actually this might be the direction that he needs to run in. And that's exactly what I saw was happening in my own life. The Lord was providing opportunities and opening doors that for a time work started to get almost in the way of that. And I definitely don't want to present this as something like, you know, it's always that way for people, because there are many people who are being faithful, balancing both, and the Lord gives them grace, or maybe it's just not the right time for it. But you know, I'm living at home. I don't have dependents or anything like that. So, you know, I do have the freedom to be able to do that. But then, yeah, it was something that required faith on my part, especially someone who likes security and stability and knowing what I'm doing with my life. So it definitely was a faith move to let that one go. So yeah, it's been a year since then, and yeah, the Lord has been faithful.
That's incredible. And yeah, I mean, I remember, because I was having a conversation earlier this year with Sarah Dewars, and she's doing that balance of work and making music. And I think both, like you're saying, both require faith. It requires faith to leave your job and pursue something. And then it also requires faith to be in a season where it feels like, man, my heart's so over here, but I just need to be faithful with what's in front of me until God makes it clear, or whatever that looks like. So I think, yeah, I do empathize with people in those positions, because there's a lot of wrestling that's involved. And then when you take that step, whatever it may be, it's that into the unknown. It's like there's so much uncertainty, so much anxiety that can flood in as well. How has that been like for you? So when you took that step, have you had doubts since then, or has it been a time of like confirmation, like, yeah, this is definitely the right decision, I'm so glad I've done this?
Yeah, so literally as soon as I left my job, I was in the middle of fundraising for my album, and thankfully by the end of it we did reach the target for what I was fundraising for. And at that time I'd already booked 2 weeks to record my album, which would have been annual leave that I had to take, but because I left my job, it was like, okay, I have this time to just focus on recording the album. And it all came together really well. But at that time, once I finished recording the album, that's when I didn't know what to do next. So now I was just like, oh, I have this free time, I have no idea what to do with it. But I think it didn't even take that long. I then heard Wing just a couple of the artists as well. So he just kind of like put in a good word for me and was just like, hey, I think Praise would be really good for this role. And, you know, she just left her job. So spoke to Chris and, yeah, just kind of put that word in for me. So it was definitely God, like, showing his grace and faithfulness in that time, because it was definitely something that I wanted to do. Because I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he works in the music industry, and I was just asking him, like, what kind of job role could someone like me do? Because I enjoy like working with artists and just like connecting the dots and helping people on their journey, but I'm not a producer and I'm not a manager really. Like, what kind of role could I do? And he just said to me, I think A&R would be good for you. And then obviously at that time I was just like, that seems so out of reach, because I don't know anyone at Capitol, don't know anyone at Sony, don't know anyone like anywhere that could be a plug for that kind of thing. But then, yeah, this job opened up, which has been such a gift. And yeah, in a lot of ways, it's just proven to me that it was the right decision. And when I first left, that's when I did feel the doubts, just because I had no idea what was going to come next. But since then, I don't think I've looked back or thought about it, because yeah, God has provided and continues to just guide my steps in a way that, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to think this up on my own really. So I've just been really grateful.
That's awesome. And I'm sure it's like shaped a bit of your your music and influenced your music in that regard, just like you're saying, the faithfulness and grace of God and his hand in your life, and just seeing that in work is awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any other like particular highs or lows that that you can think of that have shaped or have influenced your music style, or the creative process for you, or shaped your music?
Yeah, I definitely draw from a lot of life experiences, and also sometimes just the normal and mundane. Like I can be having a conversation with a friend, and then they just say something that I'm like, oh, that's a song idea. And it's not even that you're digging for these things, but they just like come to you by surprise almost. And I think one of the best things I learned about songwriting is that it's not always when you sit down to write that the creativity is flowing, but it's more of a, like, in your natural daily life, you can be gleaning from so many different things. And it can just be that you're appreciating the beauty that's around you, and that leads to writing a song. And so I tend to be very aware and just kind of observant of what's going on around me, because I'm naturally introverted and a thinker, and so like my mind is always ticking and something's always happening, but in a way it makes me more aware of what's happening, so I pick up on things, and that turns into ideas. Not to say that I'm always so creative and always got a song to write, because I definitely had creative block like earlier this year, but at the same time I think it's there's so much around us that if we stopped to notice that there's a lot of creativity in that. But I think especially what inspired my album the most was just like a difficult time that my family and I went through during 2022, and it started off just as like journal entries and just the way that I would speak to God, and a lot of my own personal feelings, but then it felt like the Lord was giving me something to say that would be an encouragement to someone else, and so that naturally turned into songs. So when I'm thinking about creativity and the kind of music I want to make, I'm often thinking about how it will be received in terms of not just like the vulnerable side in terms of showing parts of my life, but also thinking about how this will speak to the mother, or speak to the child, speak to just like the person who's doing their 9 to 5 and needs something to listen to on their way there, just how it can be a part, or like the soundtrack to people's daily lives for the normal person, basically. That's where a lot of my heart is for that.
That's awesome. And I suppose then as you're writing this music and thinking about, like you said, those people from all different walks of life and stages or places, what's the element of your vulnerability coming in, and then the hope of the listener? Like where do you want the listener to end up from listening to what you created?
Well, I often think about a quote by, I believe it was C.S. Lewis, and like how he was saying how friendship basically starts from like, oh, you too, like just that realization that it's not just me. And I think that's what people tend to relate to most when it comes to music. The songs that people love the most, aside from the catchy music and the great melodies and how it sounds, a lot of the music that people love the most are the ones that they feel like they connect to the most. Like, oh, you wrote exactly what I was thinking. And so a lot of the time I want my music to be a way that people can then talk to God and have conversation with him, that they feel like, okay, this is literally exactly how I'm feeling, and so they can put words to that, and they can then bring that to God. I think that's like my priority. That's what I really want, whether it's a a song that is written vertically to God, or it's more of just the horizontal, like here and now, like what's going on. But at the same time, it gives people language for things that maybe they wouldn't have had before. So that's my main thing. And then like I said, just feeling like, just knowing that it's not just you who feels these things or thinks these things, but it's like a part of the human experience, and that's what like naturally connects people the most, I think.
I love that, and I love that quote as well that you said by C.S. Lewis, because I think it does speak into our human experience that we don't like being isolated, yet we isolate ourselves and feel like we're the only ones going through things. Probably because of our own pride or insecurities, or just we various different fears. And then, like you're saying, when you create something that connects to the human experience or that individual level and realizes like, well, there's other people that are saying these things, and they've put words to how I'm feeling or my emotions or just what I was thinking. It brings you into community, and it brings you out of isolation. So I think that's awesome. Has that been a journey to learn how to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. In a way, because you're being so vulnerable, sometimes you kind of question how people will see you on the other side of that. They're like, whoa, actually these feelings are pretty dark. Like there's a song I wrote called Make It Home, and I remember writing some of the lyrics and being like, actually this is quite heavy, but I know that it helps, and I know that, like you said, it does create community. And I also myself have the tendency to isolate myself sometimes, but writing things down, because it goes from out of my head to now being able to express it. I think sometimes why people isolate themselves is because they don't know how to talk about things, or they don't know how to really express what they're going through. But it's almost as if like just being able to have that time to think about it and put it on paper, and then it becomes a song. It then like unlocks something in people, like, oh, actually, so this is the thing, like this is how I'm feeling. And so it then is a gateway for people to talk about things. So sometimes I've written songs and I've been like, oh, that's literally like that is what I'm feeling. And so then I can have conversation, and I can just open up about stuff. So it's just more about giving people tools. And I think the Psalms also are great for that reason, and why people connect with that so much, because they can see themselves in it, and it does talk about things in the real, raw and honest way. And it's less curated, and it's not, the nicely packaged I'm fine, but it digs into the heart of the matter. So it was initially hard, but it gets easier like the more that I've been able to do it.
I mean, that's something that people, especially in this culture, crave, is authenticity. And like you're saying about the Psalms, is it doesn't give like a clear formula, but it shows the human emotions are like fluctuate up and down, and go through valleys and mountains. And like as a listener, I really appreciate artists like yourself, where you can be vulnerable with your music and put words to a bunch of different things. But then I think like I'm listening, I'm connecting, but I can't imagine how hard that would be for someone like yourself to to enter into that space. And because it seems like it's like two levels of vulnerability. One is you being honest with yourself, like this is how I'm feeling, and I'm going to write it down. So that's the first level of vulnerability. And then the second one, which is like blows my mind, is I'm going to put this out there, open to like criticism, open to people who may say things contrary. I mean, that's just worst case scenario, the things my mind says.
Yeah.
So there's those two layers that I'm like, it's so incredible being able to get to that stage. Has the gospel helped you in that? Face the inner critic, and then even just face the fear of man?
Yes, that's a great question, and so much, because I especially love doing that, because most of the time I don't really know how I got to this position of like making music and people being, you know, blessed by it or impressed by it, or sometimes like I get a lot of high praise from people. So I think just releasing music that is very human and very real, I'm hoping it's showing people that I'm very normal and very human. So I think sometimes we look at artists and just think that, you know, they get it, or like they're very they're further ahead, or somehow closer to God, or something like that. But just having music that shows the struggle and the realness, as well as, you know, the victories and the great things that happen, just it gives me a lot of peace, because I know then that I'm not presenting myself as something higher than I am, but, you know, because the word does tell us to be sober-minded about how we see ourselves, not to, you know, like elevate ourselves beyond what is true, but then also not speaking about ourselves or presenting ourselves in a way that is just like completely contrary to what God says about us. But it's all about the balance, being somewhere like, you know, in the middle. So being vulnerable and being open like that is helpful for me, because I know that I'm showing not even the full self, because even social media is not fully true, or we only present the best part of ourselves, no matter how hard we try. But still, it's a way of giving people like a glimpse of the humanity that's there. And the Bible is like the best example, because it doesn't hide anything. It shows us like the worst of what man can do. Even the people that God calls friends, like, you know, we see their slip-ups and their failures, and the way that they've carried themselves, and like we can relate to that. We can see ourselves in them. And so the gospel has definitely helped me to remind myself that literally everybody is going through something, and everybody needs God, and we will never not need him. So showing our need and showing our weakness is just an invitation for God's power to really show itself in that. So, and I've seen that, like me just showing my weakness and the areas that, you know, I haven't arrived yet, quote unquote, and things like that. I've received messages from people who have just, you know, received from that and been blessed or encouraged by things like that. So like God continues to glorify himself and use that for his glory and for the good of the people that get to listen to it. So it would be wrong of me, if anything, to hide that aspect of my life, for sure.
That's awesome. I like that. And would you say in the music industry, is there a need for artists to like be the expert, or have it all together, or have that, like, is that a pressure that like you feel, or is it something different?
Yeah, the pressures are always going to be there. Whether or not it's true is the difference, I think, because a lot of what we might be putting pressure on isn't necessarily the priority when it comes to making art or actually being an artist. Especially these days, there is a lot of focus on, you know, the algorithm and, you know, making sure you're posting X amount of reels or TikToks a day, and, you know, you need to be doing all of these things. But you can easily get caught up in the race of, I don't know, trying to get to some imaginary pinnacle. But I think sometimes there are things that are worth pursuing as an artist. Like, we don't want to ever, just fold our arms and sit back and not do anything. Like, these are gifts that God has given us to steward. So we want to do our best as much as we can in developing our skills and continuing to be teachable, and also trying things that maybe we're not used to, or we're not it's not our natural dispensation, maybe to post a reel or to share our music more than once. But actually these are things that again God can use. And like, how many times of a song has gone viral, or a reel has gone viral, and you see the comments and it's like, oh, I actually really needed to hear this, or this is exactly, like, this came up on my For You page at the perfect time. And that's because someone's been diligent enough to post it and to put the effort into that. So some of it is good pressure. Some of it is, actually I need to be diligent with this. But then if it leads to competition or envy or apathy or like comparison, then that's when it's not a helpful kind of pressure. But not all of it is bad, I would say. And I've definitely been affected by it, and I've responded badly to it, and I've responded well to it. It's definitely a journey for everybody, and no one fully gets it. But I guess just putting in the effort and using what we have in our hands rather than just striving after what we don't have is probably the best way about it, I think.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And I think that whole social media side of things it creates a lot of tension. And I think you're right, like, it's a tool that can be used, but there just needs to be intentionality around it, like you're saying, because it can so quickly lead to performance and linking your identity to comments or likes or whatever it may be, the amount of shares you get, and then it can quickly spiral from that place. But if you're intentional about it, it can be an amazing tool, like you said, to reach people that may have never come across your work, and from that place hear the human experience, hear vulnerability, hear the story of the gospel in your music, and touch their hearts, and be that connection of their lives with God, hopefully. So 100%. Do you find any other particular distractions within the culture that we live in that draw our attention away from God, or even as a musician or an artist, distractions that draw your attention away from your music and what God's doing in your life there?
I think my main distraction sometimes can just be like the frequency that I might release or put out music, because we tend to elevate and celebrate the ones that are working hard and grinding and have a new single out every 3 weeks or something like that. And you definitely can't assume what place it comes from, in terms of it's not that like every 3 weeks they're literally writing a new song. It may have been years previous that they'd been working on it, and now is just the time that it's coming out. But then we look at that and think, oh, I'm behind and I need to show up and I need to be a part of whatever's happening. But so I've been learning that it is okay to just slow down and let life do what it needs to do, but as well keep working on the craft and being faithful with what I have. So that would probably be one of my main distractions. But then sometimes a lot of what I see as an artist, but also like my A&R role, two things mainly. One of them being just how it can easily turn into like a false, or like connections that aren't real, basically, in terms of people connecting or wanting to connect with certain artists or certain people because that will help them get somewhere, or that will help elevate what they're doing, rather than fostering genuine connection because you can learn from them, or we have something to offer in a way that just respects what God has put in them. So sometimes I do see that, and it is quite sad. Like, I don't want it to become a place where we start to like use each other or take advantage of each other because it's beneficial for us, but to also be okay with lifting other people up, and the people that can't give us anything, but we can still invest into them, like not just focusing on like collectives and cliques and all of that kind of thing that can sometimes creep up. And then the other side of that also is kind of connected, but like when marketing takes precedence over the art itself, or again, genuine connection with people that are taking in the music, sometimes it's easy to focus more on numbers and just forgetting that it's real people that are interacting with the posts or with the music and things like that. And yeah, that can easily become a distraction sometimes. So it is a both and. It's not to say that marketing is evil or that there's no room for it, but there's definitely a way to do it tastefully and still not forgetting what the main goal is, which is hopefully to build the kingdom. So yeah, I think that those are the things for me that pop up quite frequently that I have noticed can be a distraction. And yeah, sometimes get in the way.
Yeah. The first example you gave from your experience in A&R in terms of just noticing how people may use each other to try and get to a certain position. I think it's so true of the human, like our temperament is we're trying to climb, like we're trying to perform, trying to achieve and not just like be. But it reminded me of a quote. I don't know who said it, but it went something along the lines of use things, not people, love people, not things. And that's what it reminded me of. That is like, yeah, our goal is, even with social media and stuff, is like our goal isn't to love it, but let's use it as a tool. And let's not use people, but let's love people and see them in the way that God sees them, as his beautiful creation that he's given his dignity to. But yeah, so often we can get those things mixed up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely comes down to just, like you said, humanizing people and seeing them as like God's creation rather than an object or a commodity, something to just be used and disposed of as we please, really. So yeah.
Last sort of question, or two more. This second last question.
Okay.
What would you say you've learned about God and yourself through? It seems like you've gone through quite a bit in the past, like a short amount of time, the past 3 or so years. What would you say you've learned about yourself and God through those years?
Well, I've definitely seen like God just provide in various ways, and not just financially, but he has provided a lot of people that have come alongside me through this whole music journey, who have become like mentors, literally become like family as well, which I've been really blessed by. And yeah, it's just definitely opened my eyes to like the beauty of what we get to do creatively, and it's just made it for me that it's like it's more than just the music, and it's more than just the response that we get from it sometimes, but there is something beautiful literally just about creating the thing, putting it out, and then also cheering each other on. That's been one thing that I've really enjoyed. And yeah, I've definitely seen it as God's provision, because sometimes these are the very friends that have produced songs for me, or that I've been able to add backing vocals or something for something they're doing, and it's just this like mutual like supporting one another, and yeah, just being a part of each other's lives in that way. And in terms of what I've learned about myself, it's very interesting because I most definitely wasn't in any position of leadership or used to being seen or known much, and not in a kind of woe is me way, but I was just always the one who's like fine to be in the background, and yeah, I've always been okay with that. So navigating a space like this where you're now seen as almost like a leader in a way, has been difficult at times, because my tendency is to hide and to not be a part of that. But one of the ways that the Lord has been teaching me recently has just been showing me that leadership doesn't always have to be loud or in your face, or it does. You don't always have to lead from the front as well. Like, you can lead right from where you are, and with gentleness and with quietness and with all of the ways that the Lord has already made me. It's not a hindrance to what He's calling me to do. So I've just been learning to embrace those things and use that, like, wherever the Lord has placed me. So a lot of the things that I used to think were almost like a limitation are, like, the Lord is kind of showing me how they can be superpowers in a way. So that's so good. Kind of what I've been learning.
That's awesome. What a cool cool takeaway from the last couple of years. And yeah, so thankful for yourself and the music that you produce and the work that you're doing. If people are wanting to find out more about yourself, Praise, or your music, I know you released your album In Times Like These last year. Where would you direct them to?
Yeah, so I'm mainly on Instagram, which is at Praise Lubangu Music, and all the links are there, linked to the website, linked to the music, so that would be the best way. And everything is kind of all neatly in one place, so if you start there, I think it will lead you to all the music and everything.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for making the time to have this conversation, and
of course,
I have really enjoyed just hearing your heart and hearing you share. You share with such clarity and gentleness, and the heart of Jesus really comes through, and I really appreciate that. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's been great.